Welcome to the First Things First podcast. And first things first, we need you to subscribe and leave comments letting us know what you think of the show. We're listening. I'm Nick Wright, joined by two of my favorite people, Jenna Wolfe, Cris Carter. Now, let's get the show started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. Yes, tell me.
Can I just tell America something real quick?
Yeah.
Jenna Wolfe is one of my partners. Jenna Wolfe has done national television for the better part of 15 years, is an actress, is a professional workout just extraordinaire, yet has real issues with minute things like cutting straws and things like that. Cris Carter, one of the greatest athletes ever, Football Hall of Famer, for the better part of 6 weeks has been doing this show uncomfortably because he didn't know you could lower the armrests of your seat. Yesterday, our great stage manager, Joe, came out here and lowered them for him, and it was a religious experience for him. So
game changer for
it is unbelievable the talent some have, and then the blind spots.
Barry's boot camp got me locked up here. Now I can relax. It should be a better product.
Feeling good.
It was one of the funnier things. The expression on CeCe's face when he went like this.
Oh, my God.
Dang. Look what happened. Our partner, Nick Wright, is perfect all around.
There are better ways to start the show, though.
No, this is good.
Wow.
This is good. I like it. We like the audience to know what our drawbacks are.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with some football. Is that better?
Let's do that.
All right. There is no better way to start a show than with a hypothetical. Patriots and Steelers. We'd like to see it happen. We'd want to see it happen. But unless both teams win this weekend, the possible AFC Championship rematch might not happen. But that's not stopping one Pittsburgh player from assuming it will happen. Safety Mike Mitchell, who joins us today at 8:30, is confident in the Steelers' chances. He says, quote, "We're going to play the Patriots again. We can play them in hell. We can play them in Haiti. We can play them in New England. We are going to win." Not sure why we had to bring Haiti into this, but still, I'm going to go with alliteration. CC, do you have any issue with at least some of the Steelers already looking ahead to the Patriots and past the Jaguars, who they will face this weekend?
The normal Cris would have a problem with this because, I've been in the locker room. I know how difficult it is. And I know what the coaches are preaching to the players week in and week out. But when I was in the league, there were so many teams in the NFC that could win a Super Bowl. I was in Philadelphia, Minnesota. Man, Washington could win a Super Bowl. The Giants had won Super Bowls. Green Bay had gotten Reggie White and Brett Favre. San Francisco, they had a few legends out there. Dallas could win. So for me, when I played, I couldn't focus on one team. There wasn't one team that had dominated everyone. Sure. So there were so many teams that were capable that it was easy for me to focus. Now, Pittsburgh, there's really only one. Just one team for them. And that's New England. Now, I remember Shannon Sharp in the 1998 season. They were the number one seed in the AFC. We were the number one seed in the NFC. We got upset by Atlanta. And I remember him telling me that we had to refocus because we were so looking forward to playing the Vikings in the Super Bowl that we had to make sure that we appropriate the same amount of kind of anger and intensity because we were looking forward to playing you guys all year, and they end up playing Atlanta, beat them fairly lopsided in the Super Bowl. So this happens. I don't mind so much with Pittsburgh. You know why? Because we found out through our friend Coach Mangini, different families, they got different rules. This is the way they do things in Pittsburgh. So New England won't be doing that, but it works in Pittsburgh. So for them, I'm not going to criticize it. Like, different people, they want to do different things. Now, get the job done this week. It's a little premature, but New England is not someone that I would be sending flares to let them know that I'm waiting on them.
I think most people's reaction is going to be the almost cliche, oh, you gave the Jacksonville Jaguars bulletin board material. Now, this is something I've talked to you about, talked to Mark Schlereth about. It's something that going into doing this television show, and we started 4 or 5 months ago, I didn't believe existed in pro football because each game's so important. And one of the points Stink and you made is, listen, as important, as dangerous as pro football is, you have certain guys in the locker room that do need to be refocused, that do need the extra attention. So I can buy that, I suppose, for week 4, for week 6. But the idea that there's someone in the Jags that going into a game, the biggest pro football game anyone on the Jags has ever played, except for Calais Campbell, best I can tell, that they'd be like, not going to really do film study this week. Wait, what'd Mike Mitchell say? Break out the tapes. I just don't think that's a real thing. So, am I wrong on that?
You're not wrong on that, but the thing it does, an offensive lineman who won't necessarily read the paper, but when Mike Mitchell says something like that, the team during the week, they clip out all the clippings from the other paper. They put it in one little pile, staple it together, and then they pass them out in the locker room. So you're able to read not only what they're writing locally in your market, what they're writing in the opposition's market, but also what they're writing nationally.
And why do they do that?
I think it's just to keep the players informed of what's going on in the media, because you also have a better job to do interviews. So I just think as a professional team, they do provide that for you. And it's very informative, because as a player, I'm not watching all the other 31 teams. So it condenses it so you know. Now, as an offensive lineman, I heard Mike Mitchell say something. So we have a pass play. We throw the ball down the field. One of the wide receivers have it. Mike Mitchell pops into my eye. I might beeline off to the left to try to get a shot on him because he said something earlier in the week. Now, little things like that, they do happen. But as far as bulletin board material, I believe that it's real, and it does motivate a small percentage of players.
So if that's the case, what in the world would benefit Mike Mitchell to do something like this? Why would he want to?
Maybe.
But what does he gain from it? If there's even a possibility of something like CC said.
Because the media says, we want people who are genuine and authentic. No, you don't. No, you want people to lie to you, because that's exactly what Mike and a lot of people are thinking. He said it. Very few times will the coaches or organizations allow you to say actually what the truth is.
And there's something that should be said about the Steelers, because they've had a lot of mini controversies, many self-inflicted, and we've discussed them ad nauseum this year, whether it was Roethlisberger's comments after the Jags game, the Martavis Bryant social media stuff, Antonio Brown's sideline bro-up.
Yeah. Mike Tomlin doing something similar.
Right, Mike Tomlin saying, we're looking ahead.
One of the players leaving the locker room and that information getting out.
So because of that, we've discussed the Steelers as much as we've discussed any team on this show. And I feel like we've maybe a bit lost the forest for the trees, because the reality is, with 8 teams left, you can make, I think, the strongest argument. Who's had the best season in the NFL this year? I think it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nobody's got a better record. Nobody's been better than them over the last 3 months. Nobody right now, at this moment of the 4 teams that had a bye, is healthier than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nobody is coming off, I would say, you can say, well, the Patriots did just beat them. Patriots are also coming off their worst month of football with their quarterback, and now this controversy surrounding the entire team. The Steelers have earned the right to say, yeah, damn straight. We've lost 3 times this year. One was a fluky loss to the Bears. We're not going to get a chance to redeem that. We lost to the Jags. We're going to wax them this weekend. And then we're going to redeem the loss to the Patriots. This isn't a 10-6 team saying it. It's a team that arguably had as good of, if not the best regular season of any team in the league.
Okay, A, it's not justification for saying something like that. B, they didn't play well because of all the strife they've had during the season. But I guess I'm just curious if, and you're right, they've played consistently throughout, despite everything they've gone through. But there's got to be some red flag for you, CC, as a player, when a team in the divisional round is already looking past a team. Any team that's there, whether they're having a good season or bad season, is there for a reason.
Well, the red flag is the line between the good and great teams in the league is very, very thin.
Yeah.
And turnovers and sacking the quarterback, those things can turn the playing field on talent. Pittsburgh has far more talent than Jacksonville. But Jacksonville is an NFL team, and I would never overlook an NFL team on a one-and-done scenario. Yeah, if they were playing the best of 7, oh, yeah, I could see him talking about that. I don't like the part you're overlooking the Jags a little bit, because that should consume your conversation, because that is the #1 goal. And number 2, I don't like the fact that he said he's going to beat New England, because he's really put the rest of his teammates in a predicament that now they have to answer that question. Well, Mike Mitchell said, you guys are going to beat New England. If they go to Cam Hayward and they ask, well, what do you think? Now, he has to either contradict Mike or support his teammate. So you put your teammates in a bad spot when you say things like this, because now reporters go to them. Ben Roethlisberger, you looking forward to New England? Ben's like, no, I'm concentrating on Jacksonville.
Just answer this for me. It's not a loaded question. What would be the downside if there was just a unified message from every one of the Steelers? Yeah, of course we're going to beat New England because we're going to win the damn Super Bowl.
Because the 53-man roster, there's not enough guys on there that are focused enough and professional enough to be able to handle something that is not. It's not on the table this week.
Not right in front of them?
Yeah, like, why would you do? And the recipe, and you can't show me a pattern where this has been successful. All right? Everyone's gone the other route and be successful. Concentrate on the task at hand. All right? The other method, as far as projecting, oh, we're going to play New England next week, oh, we're going to beat them, that hadn't been successful. That's the #1 reason why I wouldn't prescribe it.
Back here with our top story today. Steelers safety Mike Mitchell turned some heads with some comments yesterday. Quote, we're going to play the Patriots again. We can play them in hell. We can play them in Haiti. We can play them in New England. We're going to win. So with us now is Mike Mitchell himself. Hey, Mike, good morning. Thanks for getting up and joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you guys for having me.
So obviously I want to start with that right there. Tell me what you were thinking, what you were asked, and how you're feeling about this potential rematch.
You know, it's one of those things that people in the media do. You know, it's a comment that was out of a 30-minute interview, and you know that's what gets blown up. But you know, I'm not mad about it. At the end of the day, it was the truth. That's how we feel. But the #1 thing is we're focused on a great opponent in the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that's where our focus is.
Mike, as a former player in the locker room, I know how the quotes, how they can be pulled out of context. So you're saying, based on those comments, you're not focused on New England. You are like the rest of the professional teams. You're focused on Jacksonville. You like to redeem yourself from the earlier season loss, and you guys aren't looking beyond that and looking forward to going to Foxborough next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chris, you're a former competitor, former player. You get it. The Jacksonville beat us, I think it was 30-9 at our home field. So obviously they have our main focus. You know, that interview was taking place after Ryan Shazier was injured. The interview was mostly about Ryan, and that was just a comment talking about the game shortly after, when everyone was obviously upset with the controversy of how we lost that football game. Like I said, my focus is on Jacksonville. That's where it has to be, because for us to even get there, that's who we have to beat. And plus, we have plenty of business with Jacksonville based on how they did us earlier in the year.
Mike, I don't want to belabor the point, but you just said something that I thought was really interesting. The quote that we just played at the beginning of this was not from this week. That was from right after the New England game. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was not from this week.
Oh.
That was weeks ago. That's why I don't get it. Sometimes I don't get it. You know, you can't complain about it, but it should almost be illegal. You shouldn't be able to talk to someone for 30 minutes and then you take 40 seconds of a 30-minute conversation, and that's all I'm hearing about the next day. Now, obviously, it wasn't something that was negative. It's something that could be skewed as negative, but it's not something that I'm going to lose too much sleep about, because, like I said, it was honest and true. But, you know, to say that we're not focused on Jacksonville, that's what I don't want. That's the message that I want to get out there. We are 100% focused. I'm 100% focused, and that's what we're thinking about.
No, all right, so let's talk about the Jags for a moment. You mentioned they beat you guys 30-9. Your defense obviously didn't allow all 30 of those points. It was one of the weirdest football games of the year, just from everything that happened on both sides of the ball. How do you feel? You guys have had a week of rest. Some of your star players have had a couple weeks of rest. You guys got to see them play this past week. How do you feel about the game this weekend?
It's going to be tough. You know, obviously they did the job in a big way against us. The first time, they have a very formidable defense. You know, I think going into halftime, it was 7-6. I believe we were up 7-6. Maybe they were up. But, you know, I knew from a defensive standpoint, for the most part, we had done a pretty decent job of keeping them under control. But, you know, obviously their defense was able to make plays. We didn't get enough stops quick enough in the second half, and they were able to kind of bleed us. And then obviously in desperation moments, you know, Fournette breaks the long run against us, which really hurt and made him have a good day and really made the score get out of control.
Mike, one of the things that happens when you have a tough game like that early in the season and then you play them again, that's all people are talking about. That's all they remember until you go back out there and you play again. And for someone like your quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, he had an especially tough day, throws 5 interceptions after the game. He said it himself, talked about where his head was, whether he still wanted to be playing football. I mean, there were a lot of things that sort of stirred a little bit of a controversy surrounding the team. I'm wondering, has he spoken to players in the locker room? Like, can you tell where his head is now, how focused he is on definitely wanting this rematch again?
He's our leader, second to Coach Tomlin, so I know that he's 100% focused. I've just been playing with him as a teammate now 4 years, so I know where he's at. I know he's a competitor. He's going to come out ready to go. Like we were kind of alluding to at the beginning of the conversation, I think any person that has a competitive bone in their body, when someone beats you at something, you can't wait to run that back or just to get that back, to find out if that was a real defeat or, you know, if it was really just you making mistakes. And I think as a competitor, you kind of tend to think that it's most of the time it comes down to your control. Maybe it's just being an alpha male. It's hard to admit that someone may be better. So you always want to try to get the rematch and do better this next time around. And I know Ben is that way. I know our entire team is that way. And we look forward to trying to do that on Sunday.
And, Mike, looking at the way the game went, not only did Ben play bad, you guys were humiliated from a physical standpoint. That's something you Pittsburgh Steelers, you guys aren't used to. Now, you're one of the most competitive players in the National Football League. Mike Mitchell, how would you recover from losing to Blake Bortles in the playoffs?
I don't know. I don't think that way.
You don't foresee that?
Foresee that happening. Yeah, I don't foresee that happening. So I try not to. I don't even think losing is never an option, especially here in Pittsburgh. So I couldn't even tell you what I would be thinking or how I would handle it because it's not even something that I'm thinking about.
Is this the best Steelers team you've played on?
It's up there. You know, it's in my 4th year here, and you know, when I first got here, it was the beginning of I don't want to say something new, but you know, we had a lot of older players, and now the young guys are starting to become older guys and veterans. And like I was talking to Coach T maybe a couple weeks back, you know, I'm in my senior year here in this program, and it's cool to see how we've gone a step further every year. You know, my first year here, I think won the division, was eliminated in the first round. In the second year, we went to the divisional round. Then obviously, third year, we went to the AFC Championship. Obviously, here in my 4th year, it'd be no better way than to finish it, win the AFC Championship, win the Super Bowl, and finish the job.
Hey, Mike, when your team is at full strength, there's really very few teams that can stop you. And one of the pieces on offense that puts you at full strength is having Antonio Brown back, one of the best receivers in the league. We've been watching some of his workout videos. Very impressive, might I add. Tell me a little bit about where he is, and we assume he's just going to be back and bounce back and he'll be 100%. Can you give us a little idea of what his progress and status is right now?
Yeah, I mean, he's a professional. He moved around a little bit on Monday, looked fairly decent, but, you know, he's an offensive player. We're a defensive player. Usually our fields are kind of split. So when they're working, you know, we're kind of either chilling and the show team is helping them and vice versa. So I wasn't really focused on watching Antonio very much during the week. I'm sure him and Coach will update you guys on his health and his progress for his determination for the game this week. But from what I see, man, he looked good. The number one thing is he's been in good spirits the whole time. We know he's one of our best players, one of the best players in the whole league. So obviously we're going to be a better team if we have him. That's not, you know, that's not going to shock anyone by me saying that. But obviously, if we can get him, we'll be excited about it. Everyone knows the work that he puts in, the type of competitor that he is. So if he can be out there, it's definitely going to help us.
Hey, Mike, as a former player, you know that we're a fraternity that's very, very close. When Ryan Shazier, he's a kid I watched play high school in Fort Lauderdale, then went to Ohio State, so I've been very, very close. Can you give us, as the fraternity of football players and fans, an update on where Ryan is right now and what it's meant for you guys to have him around the team.
I can answer that second part. It's meant a lot to me, to a lot to the guys. Just every day we see him, I think he's coming to practice today, so that'll be good. But every day that we can see him, man, it's fantastic. Just because he's a guy that I got pulled from a film session. Usually I was in there by myself, but usually my film mate every morning is Shay. We've been doing that together 4 years now, so that's kind of been an adjustment for me this season, not having my my road dog, my arguing partner, my study partner with me every morning. But I've adjusted, and so is the whole team. Our number one thing is just getting Ryan healthy and trying to do what we can for Ryan. It's not about what he can do for us, but what we can do for him. The kid has sacrificed so much. So many people don't know the sacrifices that we make until you see something like this. And we just want Ryan to know how much we appreciate him. But, we can't tell him that enough. He knows that. He's known that before. But, I mean, he knows that even more now. As far as his injuries and update and things like that, I've had a lot of one-on-one talks with Ryan, and I think, we're both believers in Christ, and Ryan's he's going to have a beautiful testimony to share with the world, and I want him to be able to tell that. I don't want to ruin that in any way. It's his story. I want him to be able to tell you guys in his own words. So with respect to him, I'll let him keep you guys updated on his prognosis and his recovery. But I can tell you, like I said, that second part of the question, I can tell you that it is always uplifting. You're a former player, man. When you have one of your brothers get severely injured, if their spirits are up, and just to see them improving, it would obviously improve your spirits, and it's done the same for us.
Well, Mike, we are so happy to hear that. Please pass
Thank
along
you.
our happy thoughts and
Good luck this weekend.
well. Yeah, good luck, Mike. Thank you. If nothing else, there is intrigue surrounding all the Patriots drama this week, and nobody likes intrigue more than I like intrigue. Questions have begun to swirl about Tom Brady and former backup Jimmy Garoppolo's relationship. According to reports, Tom Brady, quote, seemed liberated after the Patriots traded Garoppolo. Brady addressed these rumors. Take a listen.
I think that's just such a poor characterization of anything. I've never, in 18 years, ever celebrated when someone's been traded, been cut. I mean, I think that's just, I would say that's disappointing, to hear that someone would express that, or a writer would express that, because it's so far from what my beliefs are about my teammates.
Cece, what do you think? What was your reaction to Tom Brady's comments?
I'm with Tom, and the reason why I'm with Tom is because I know so many players that have played with Tom, and the most prominent would have to be Randy Moss, and all the stories that Randy's told me about Tom, who he is as a person, how he loves football. Tom was on the record as far as telling his wife, I love football. It's my first love. I'm going to play football at least 10 more years. I'm trying to get at least another Super Bowl ring. So for me, the other players, and Tom's been through so many situations where they've cut players or traded players. Richard Seymour, Ty Law, Lawyer Malloy. I mean, they cut him before the first game. Like, he has been there. Teddy Bruschi retiring, losing Troy Brown. What about Wes Welker? Randy Moss leaving disgruntled. Like, Tom has been through all this, so the one player that they get rid of, Tom's going to stand up and start clapping, is a guy who they have the same agent who's getting an opportunity to take over his own franchise. Tom's not that kind of teammate. He's not that kind of person. And for someone to be able to write that about him, like, I know there's things that come out of New England, and I like to try to support the things that are real. But there's a lot of make-believe, too. And this part right here, I believe, is make-believe based on firsthand account of talking to guys who have been Tom Brady's teammate.
All right, so a couple things quickly. One, that was on Tom Brady's weekly radio appearance. I got something wrong yesterday. I just want to correct. Yesterday, we talked about Belichick's interview that I thought was a one-off. I had the people reach out to me from WEI. He goes on with Michael Holley regularly. So I got that wrong yesterday. I want to correct that. My apologies. In regards to this one, CC, I know there's parts of this story that you believe, parts you don't believe. I know from when we talked about it, one part that you find totally believable because you've seen this type of thing firsthand is a guy not doing what you did with Randy, which is firsthand, one-on-one, intense mentoring of someone that's going to eventually maybe take your job. Is that, am I correct on that? You
Yes.
believe that Brady was not, while he might not have been rooting against Garoppolo, that he was not working with him.
But that wasn't his job.
Okay, so that's you mentioned that when this story first came up, and I just want to go back to it quickly. So why you aren't the only guy to have done that, but you very famously did it with Randy, a guy drafted the same position, and if I may, with no disrespect to you, a guy that the first time you saw play knew, okay, well, this guy has special talent. This guy has #1 receiver on a team or in the league type of talent. So why did you do it?
Well, because I think it's my responsibility as a player that played the game to be able to pass on the things that Mike Quick, Anthony Carter, Steve Jordan, all these players that they taught me. Keith Jackson, the things that we learned, we would pass it on to others. And I was never worried about Randy Moss ever being better than me. I had zero concern about that.
So that's what I find so interesting, because I don't think Brady ever would worry that Garoppolo's better than him.
Not
Nope.
better,
Right.
but could replace him.
Well,
would replace him.
So why did it? I would have thought if there were certain guys that were going to have the mentality, the confidence of their standing with their team, the confidence in their abilities and of their accomplishments that you had, Brady would have been in a similar spot. Is it
No,
just
he's not in a similar spot because I needed Randy Moss to be great. Tom Brady doesn't need Garoppolo to be great. There's 3-4 wide receivers on the field at the same time. When we drafted Randy Moss, I didn't look at it, oh, this guy's going to take my spot. I felt like this is my opportunity to try to win me a Super Bowl. This guy getting ready to make my job easier. And it was my responsibility that God had put me in the locker room with a troubled kid who had faced some of the things that I had faced. I was going to help him. And that was the biggest thing. I had a responsibility to do that. And like I can tell you, I had zero concerns that he was going to be better than me. Zero. So I wasn't worried about that.
So, okay, all right. Is the biggest distinction the position because you play multiple wide receivers?
Well, the biggest distinction is the person, okay? That's what I was supposed to do with my life. I've done that my whole life, all right? Tom Brady is living true to himself, and that's the biggest difference.
Okay, all right. No, I think it's rare that we have, I don't want to say a one-to-one, but a very similar comparison that you lived. And so the story of the things you did with Moss are unique in NFL history.
Right. Tom Brady's doing the type of things I did with Randy Moss. He's doing them with other position players. He's got Gronk. He's got Edelman. He's got a group of guys, Amendola, guys that he hang with, guys he's making an impact on, guys he's helping them on and off the field. He has that, but it's not his job to be able to do, and everyone is not going to sign up to do what I did. Everyone didn't travel the path that I did. I had a lot of guys who helped me out. I felt like I was doing the same thing. Mike Quick helped me out. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler. If I would have reached my potential in Philadelphia, I would have taken his job. But he still taught me. So it was in me from the beginning in the league to be able to help the younger players.
48 hours since Alabama head coach Nick Saban won his 6th national title, and pundits are already predicting his future. Many have considered whether or not he would ever set his eyes back on the NFL. You know, something Tom Brady plays in.
Exactly
the NFL.
right.
Former Cardinals coach Bruce Arians was a guest on The Herd yesterday. He has an idea where Saban could land. Take a listen.
Everybody always asks, why doesn't he go to the NFL? Do you think he's considering it?
It would not surprise me. You know, and there's a job he covets. It just happens to be open. And but he's got a dynasty right now, another dynamite recruiting class. Why he would do it, I don't know, but it would not shock me if he did.
What job?
The Giants.
Why the New York Giants?
Because they're the New York Giants. And you know, when we grew up, they were the thing.
All right, let me just say this. He didn't say there's a job he probably covets. He didn't say there's a job he might covet. He didn't say there's a job maybe he would. He said there's a job he covets, as if they have spoken and he knows it. But I'm curious, Nick, would you like to see Saban take another chance at the NFL?
Oh, I'd love to see it. I forget the fact that the overall dominance at Alabama has not been my favorite thing to watch. Remove that entirely. Nick Saban, I think the one thing Nick Saban's been unfairly evaluated on was his time with the Miami Dolphins. Now, people can criticize the way he left. People can criticize some of the things he said prior to leaving. But as far as his success in the NFL, he coached that team for 2 years. He was 15-17 as a head coach. It's a 469 win percentage. Little context, by the way, that is the exact same win percentage as John Gruden's last 6 years coaching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he did that. Here were the people who started games for him at quarterback in those 32 games. 15 games started by Gus Frerotte, 11 games started by Joey Harrington, 4 games started by Dante Culpepper, 1 by Sage Rosenfels, and 1 by Cleo Lemon. So if that's your collection of 5 quarterbacks, Culpepper injured, by the way, that's why he only started the 4, none of them at that point in their careers above average quarterbacks, and you're a game away from being a 500 coach in the NFL, that's not failure. And he left for what he turned into, the greatest job in college sports, Alabama football coach. So that is the one but on his resume. He has nothing more to prove in college. So yes, as a fan of sports, I absolutely would like to see if the best college football coach I've ever seen can duplicate any type of his success on the professional level. CC?
Nick Saban, it's amazing how the most successful people, I think we did a show, and you guys had Bill Belichick walking away from New England. Now, Bill Belichick is 2 years younger than Nick Saban. Now you have Nick Saban leaving his dynasty in Alabama. On the books, it's reported he makes $11 million. I'm just going to tell you, I think it's significantly more than that. So now you have him leaving Alabama. He's got a freshman quarterback who just won in the national championship. He tied Bear Bryant with 6 national championships. He's got in case he don't work out, he's got a sophomore that's taking him to a national championship. He has the deepest roster in college football. He can control the roster. Nick Saban's already a professional coach. It's the professional team for the state of Alabama. That's who he coaches. And the part that we're missing as people that have made decisions, typically you have a partner. And Nick Saban has a great partner. Her name is Miss Terry. And Miss Terry does not want to leave college football. She does not want to leave Tuscaloosa. So for all the people, Bruce Arian, all these other people want to stir up, we sleep with people who also help us make decisions. And I believe those 2 words right there, Miss Terry, will keep Nick Saban from venturing into pro football. I think there's 0 chance he leaves Alabama. And there's no legitimate reason to leave. He can't get a quarterback. All right? He can't practice the way he practices because NFL players, and now with the PA, because we got a new collective bargaining agreement where you can't have padded practices. You mentioned it on the show. After the semifinals game, what did they do at Alabama practice?
Full shoulder pads.
Okay, so everything that Nick Saban wants to do from a physical standpoint, he can't do in the National Football League because of the rules, and he can't control the roster the way he does at Alabama.
Okay, listen, I read the book Saban wrote, and I know how important Miss Terry, as you put it, is. I know that
the audience, Miss Terry's
that's his wife. Yeah, okay. People, I thought that was assumed. That was that she was the one working behind the scenes when he was in Miami, setting up I don't even want to call it an interview, but the meeting in Tuscaloosa, because she likes the life of being the first lady of a campus, which is very different if you're the wife of the football coach of a college versus a pro team. I understand that. But which is why I'm not saying Nick Saban's leaving Alabama. The question was, would I want to see it? And as a football fan, yes, I'd want to see it. And given everything you said, I don't know if you'd want to see it or not. I know you're saying it's not going to happen, that you don't think it's going to happen. Bruce Arians said there's a job he covets. Question is, would you want to see it? I'm curious if you...
No.
How come?
Because he's not going to be successful.
Why?
Because he can't control the roster. He can't practice the way he wants to. All right? I've been at Alabama practices. I've been in the coaches' meetings. I've been with Nick Saban planning strategically what he wants to do with people in the offseason. Nick is into teaching football and developing kids. And you can't spend enough time with NFL players to be able to do those things, and he can't control his quarterback. And if you can't get a great quarterback in the NFL, you can't win. Nick has told me that. All right, so no, I don't want him to leave. He has the best job that he could ever get, and that is coaching the University of Alabama.
Why do you think he left the first time?
I don't know.
Because it was when he had won one national title and he went to Miami. Now, obviously, he now knows how his wife feels about it, how he feels about it. He has more experience with the quarterback stuff. But, I mean, it's not like he's a college football lifer, which I think is it's where he spent the lion's share of his time.
Well, maybe he didn't know all of those things until he actually got in there and did all those things and realized, I can't pick my own roster. I can't control who my quarterback is.
His best friend is Bill Belichick. Why would he want to compete against him?
So just...
And one's a college coach and one is a pro coach. Belichick is the pro coach. All right, he would never coach in college. Nick Saban is a college coach who went to the pros,
right.
But he is a college coach.
So Bruce Arians was a head football coach. He understands how this works. You usually don't get information like that from a former head football coach. They don't just come out and say things. If anything, it's like a gigantic extraction process to get them to say anything.
Everyone makes Nick Saban's job more complicated. I can't speak for Bruce Arians. All I can do is speak for knowing Nick Saban.
Yeah.
I know Nick Saban, and I've talked to him about all these subjects.
No, I agree with you. And why?
So for me, I'm not guessing. I'm not reaching. This is what I've sat down and talked to Coach Saban about pro football. I've been fortunate enough to spend some time with the man, and these are the things. He hates this. He hates days like today where people try to tear apart his success. Now he's got to get on the phone today and tell a bunch of recruits, I'm staying at Baylor.
Check out the Big East basketball game tonight. It is a big one. Number 10 Xavier battles number 1 Villanova. That's at 7:30 Eastern on FS1 and stream it live on Fox Sports Go. And speaking of the matchup, we have Villanova head coach Jay Wright with us. And it's always great when coincidentally it works out. We talk about it, and there he is. How you doing, Jay? Good morning.
Good morning, Jenna. How are you guys?
Good to see you.
We are great. Coach, so you're taking on number 10 Xavier tonight. I happen to think you will win. What will it take to make me look like a genius? What is the game plan for this evening?
I hope you really know your college hoops, Jenna. I really do. I trust you. I trust you. Hey, they're a great team. They're coming off a really good run the last couple of years. Sweet 16, Final 8. Chris Mack's done a great job with them. They've got 2 veteran players who have been the top in our league really for the last couple of years, J.P. Macura and Trevon Blewett. So those 2 are really explosive. We've got to hold them in check, but they also have a tremendous rebounding. So when you pay too much attention to those 2, they kill you on the offensive glass. So we got to have a balance there. We can keep those 2 under control and still rebound the ball.
Hey, Coach, you're number 1 in the country. Now, we know you're the top dog now. You're going to get opposition's best. How do you get your team prepared for every time they see Nova, they're going to play like they're playing against the number 1 team?
You know what? It's a challenge, Chris, over the last, 3 or 4 years that I think we're finally getting used to. I think it was maybe 3 years ago we were number 1, and it was kind of the first time. And, it's different because you can tell when you go into different arenas, the crowd's on a different level, the team that you're playing against is. I think these guys have been through this enough that they understand that when we watch game film, we talk to them about it, the team we're watching is going to be on another level when they play us. And you can't be surprised by it. You have to expect it. So far, we've been pretty good with it, but it's still – what winds up knocking you out of number 1 usually is that happening. The opponent is on another level. We played Butler. We were number 1 a couple weeks ago, and they just played lights out, and they got us. So you got to try to play harder than a team.
Not the best freeze frame for Coach Wright.
We are Skyping with Coach Wright.
We'll try to lock him back in a moment. The thing that I'm interested about and what I was going to follow up there and ask him is I think there are certain coaches that would prefer their team never be ranked number 1 all year. So they can continue to tell them, play the disrespect card, play the underdog card. And then I think there are certain coaches that want them to have as many opportunities to play in those big games with the target on the back so they're ready for the NCAA tournament when, as everyone knows, 1 loss and your season's over. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying we have Jay Wright back, so you can go ahead and ask him that very question.
So, Coach, we were just talking about you guys being ranked number 1. I think some coaches' mentality they'd like to be able to play the underdog card with the disrespect card. They would prefer their team, since you're going to make the tournament either way, never achieve that #1 ranking until the final poll of the year after the tournament. And I'm sure there are certain coaches that say, put the target on our back. It prepares our players best for the NCAA tournament. Do you subscribe to either school of thought there?
You're right. Normally, Nick, people around us go for both. You know, I have people. Michigan State was losing the other night. I had people text me, "Oh no, we want them to win. We don't want to be #1." And we look at it completely differently. That that doesn't impact how we prepare either way. We understand it could impact our opponent sometimes, but our goal is to keep getting better every day, keep getting better every game, and not have any fear of being #1, but not have any fear of losing #1 once you're there. Because either way, we play Xavier tonight. It's going to be an awesome game, great environment at the Wells Fargo Center here in Philly. But win or lose, we're coming back tomorrow, and we want to get better. It's all about where we are at the end of the season. So we really don't let that affect us either way.
Coach, we talked earlier when right before the season started, we had you on the show and we wanted to ask you about your conference. And you said, yeah, this could be a pretty challenging conference course. Well, there are 4 teams in the top 25 in the Big East. Tell me what kind of challenge that poses for you night in and night out.
Yeah, Jenna, I'm so proud of this conference. You know, I think we talked about this. You know, we were in the old Big East, and when Big East broke up, I was really concerned just because I had such great memories of coming up with Louis Carnesecca and Rolly Massimino and John Thompson and P.J. Carlissimo, all the guys. I never thought it would be where it is now, where, as you said, there's 4 teams in the top 25, and I really believe right now there's at least 7 teams that, if the season ended right now, would be in the NCAA tournament. So the challenge is, like, you look at Seton Hall last night. Seton Hall, I really believe, is one of the best teams in the country. They go at Marquette and they get waxed. Anybody in this conference can beat anybody. DePaul went at St. John's and beat them pretty good. St. John's is a really good team, and they're struggling right now in this conference. It's reminding me of the old Big East now. We all know it. Night in and night out, you're playing great teams, great coaches, and it's really cool. I'm proud of the conference, and I'm really psyched about it.
Coach, I'm glad you brought up the Big East. Last night here on FS1, we had 2 of the historic programs, teams that you grew up watching, teams I grew up watching. Chris Mullins at St. John, Patrick Ewing back at Georgetown. I still have beef with Georgetown because, Coach, they didn't offer me a scholarship. Most of the other teams in the Big East did. But you talked about the top of the conference. Now, what has that done for the middle of the conference and the bottom of the conference? And there's so many more eyeballs back on the Big East basketball now.
Yeah, there are. Hey, Chris, I hate to say this, man. I know you're a football player. You were with the Eagles. We love you. But if Georgetown back in the day didn't offer you, they probably thought you weren't tough enough. Because they were the toughest team in the country.
Oh, very nice, Jay.
Hey, well done, sir.
Coach, I like you better in a suit. When you got that coaching uniform, you're too spicy.
You remember those teams with John Thompson back in the day? That was like a football team when you went and played against them.
Me and Gene Smith and Sleepy Floyd, Reggie Williams. Yeah. I don't think you wanted to see us, Coach.
No, definitely not. But, you know, I saw that game last night on FS1, and it is so cool to see Patrick Ewing and Chris Mullin on the sidelines. And I really think that's what the beauty of the Big East is, you know, I always compare it to SEC football. Like, if you grow up in the South, you're a football player. Like, you know, it's the lifeblood of sports in the Southeast is college football. Well, in the Northeast, it's the same way with basketball. It's basketball season all year round in all the metropolitan areas. And then you got the tradition of guys like Patrick Ewing, Chris Mullin going back to their schools after Hall of Fame careers. That's how much it means to them. And that's what Big East basketball is all about. You're in metropolitan areas at schools where basketball is king and that city basketball is king. So it's really something special.
All right, Coach, before you go, we don't have a ton of time left. I'm going to ask you at the very end, talk about yourself for a moment. Your last win was your 400th win. I know you like to focus on your players and your team and the university. Can you please tell our audience something when you look back over what has been a very successful career, aside from the national championship, something you are particularly proud of that maybe people wouldn't think of?
Well, I grew up in Philadelphia, and just like Cris and I were talking about, I watched the Big East. I was in college, and my wife's a Villanova grad. She was a Villanova cheerleader. I met her way after she was a cheerleader. I didn't grab her off the sideline or anything. But I grew up watching Big East basketball and Villanova. So I'm particularly proud just to be the coach at Villanova. It was my favorite team. I went to Jack Kraft's basketball camp. Rolly Massimino was my idol when I got into coaching. So that's enough for me. And then really that we have 100% graduation rate. Every player that stayed here for 4 years has graduated on time. And that's the entire university invest in that. That's really what we're most proud of.
Awesome.
All right, Coach, we will definitely be watching tonight against Xavier. Good luck. It's on FS1, so we never change the channel. We're literally just going to sit here until tomorrow morning.
I'm going to have a couple of my buddies come from Cincinnati maybe to rough you up before the game. Those comments there, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
Look for the guy in our expensive suit.
Thank you, Coach.
Coach, thanks a million. Always a pleasure to have you.
Keep it in FS1 in the office, too, man. You guys doing a great job.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you so much. I'm Jenna Wolfe, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.